Oh my goodness, welcome back to episode 3 of Learn to Play Yu-Gi-Oh! You want to learn to play Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it's super confusing. Don't worry, I got you. Today's episode is going to be paying cost. As a quick review, in episode 2, we learned what cost was and that it was denoted with a semicolon. So when you see the semicolon, this means cost or activation requirements. We will get into that into another video. But anyway, let's talk about paying cost in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Our first example is going to be Droll and Lockbird. So it says you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, semicolon, meaning sending from hand to graveyard is cost. But what if you cannot pay the cost? What if, for example, your opponent has Dimensional Fissure on their board? As a Malice player, I adore this card. Dimensional Fissure, also known as Dai-Fi, says any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So what happens when you try to pay the cost of Droll and Lockbird by sending the card from hand to graveyard, but Dai-Fi is out? You cannot do it. It is actually illegal to even attempt to activate Droll and Lockbird while Dai-Fi is out because cost has to be paid exactly like it says on the card. Another example would be Effect Veiler that says you can send this card from your hand to graveyard, semicolon. So the cost is sending it from hand to graveyard under Dai-Fi. Can you activate it? Nope, you cannot activate. But there are some hand traps that you can activate under Dai-Fi because cost does not require sending it to graveyard. For example, Ash Blossom says when a card or effect is activated that includes any of these, quick effect, you can discard this card, semicolon. So notice the cost of this is discarding because it does not say it has to go to graveyard. It does not matter if you discard it and it goes to banishment. Same thing with Ghost Belle. All it says is you have to discard the card. So Ghost Belle and Ash, you can activate and pay the cost underneath a card like Dai-Fi. You cannot. It is illegal to even attempt to activate Effect Veiler and Droll and Lockbird because cost has to be paid exactly. So because these two cards, Droll and Effect Veiler, say that it has to get sent to graveyard, it has to get sent to the graveyard or you cannot activate the effect. As a reminder, though, cost does not start a chain, meaning it is not something that you can respond to. So if we look at a card like Orcust Harp Horror, where it says you can banish this card from your graveyard, semicolon, you cannot respond to the banishment of this card because that is the cost. They are paying the cost. You can, however, respond to the effect of the card, which says to special summon one Orcust monster from your deck. Let's look at one more example. Let's say that your opponent plays Lollipo Yummy Way. You activate an effect and they decide to chain to your effect. So it says when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can return this card to the extra deck, semicolon, special summon up to 2 yummy monsters from your graveyard. You decide to chain in response, Heartscriptor, targeting a banished Malice card, and your plan is you're going to banish the Lollipo Yummy Way, so that way they can't pay the cost. It can't go through. Is this line of thinking correct? No. Lollipo Yummy Way goes to the bottom of the extra deck for cost. Cost is paid immediately during a chain. It does not happen as the chain is resolving. So, for example, when the player activates the Lollipo Yummy Way, they put that card to the bottom for cost. You chain Cryptor, you can no longer actually target the Lollipo Yummy Way because it is actually no longer on the field. It is not a legal target for Heartscriptor because cost has to be paid and cost gets paid immediately. You could, however, Ghost Belle Lollipo Yummy Way because they are trying to special summon 2 yummy monsters from their graveyard, which is something that even if something like Dai-Fi is out, you can Ghost Belle because it discards for cost and it'll negate the activation of special summoning a monster card from graveyard. When a Yu-Gi-Oh card has cost, you have to pay the cost exactly like it says in the card, and you pay the cost before the chain even resolves. Don't worry, y'all. I'm going to make a video about the chain. We'll get there. But for now, remember, activation, colon, cost, semicolon. We're also going to talk about activation requirements, which also uses the semicolon. We'll get there too. Anyway, cost for now, semicolon. And you have to pay cost exactly like it's written on the card. Yu-Gi-Oh is really great about telling you what it wants you to do with that card. And if you can't pay cost exactly like it says, because, for example, Dai-Fi is out and any monster that gets sent to the graveyard is banished instead, well, then looks like that is an illegal activation. You don't get to do that. And cost happens immediately upon attempting to activate the effect. You pay the cost. So yeah, that was episode 3. We're doing it, y'all. We're getting there. We're learning Yu-Gi-Oh. Let me know what else you'd like to see in the series. And thanks. See you next time. Bye.